All right, let's talk about something that could completely change the way that you and I pay taxes. I mean, imagine making six figures and paying zero in federal income taxes. Like, that sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what Trump's team is talking about doing right now. And I'm kind of on the fence about it. I don't know, how possible that is, but I've done some research here and I want to share what I found. Okay. So, according to his Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, Trump's goal is to eliminate all federal income taxes for anyone making under $150,000 a year. Bro, and honestly, when I first saw the headlines, I thought this is dope. This is genius. But is it even possible? And so the more I did some research in it, the more it seemed possible, but there's still some caveats. Caveats. Um, So no income tax at all if you make under $150,000. And right away, I'm thinking, how many people, make less than $150,000, and how much of that pays our taxes? So let's unpack this. All right. So first, let's talk about where these headlines are coming from. Trump himself didn't officially sign a bill or put a policy in place yet. But his Commerce Secretary, like I said earlier, Howard Lutnick, recently said in an interview that Trump's goal is to eliminate all federal income taxes for anyone making under $150,000 a year. And it seems like they're doing it in stages, but they're working towards that. That's the light at the end of the tunnel, is what it seems like. But that's huge because over 93% of Americans, 93% make less than $150,000 a year. And that means almost everyone would pay nothing in federal income taxes. Look, I make well over $150,000 a year, and I don't mind this. I'm okay with paying my taxes, as is. If Americans who are making less than $150,000 a year aren't paying any federal taxes, I'm actually great with this because I think, and I'm not an expert by any means, but it sounds like that would just benefit everyone. You know what I mean? There would be more consumer spending. There would be more money to invest. There would be more money circulating. People would be happier. There wouldn't be all this craziness going on. And at the end of the day, to me, it's a win-win-win for everyone. Now, I pay a lot in taxes. So I would love some type of incentives to save taxes too. But if this is one of the steps, man, what a great compromise, right? But here's the catch. According to Trump's team, this would only happen if the federal budget is balanced first. So the whole Doge thing, right? Meaning before we get to keep all our money, the government has to figure out how to replace those taxes and not run into debt. And that's the challenge. So the big question is, how do they plan to make up for trillions of dollars in lost tax revenue? And a trillions in lost tax revenue, I think, is over the course of years, because if 93% of Americans are only paying a certain amount in taxes, depending on how much it is it really trillions? But honestly, I love that the president and his team they're sharing vision, they're being transparent, and that they're talking about it frequently. This is something that we didn't really see much in the last presidency, and that's part of why it's hard to debate with anybody about how they're seeing things, their perspective, because there wasn't a lot from the Biden administration. You really had to do your research, right? But anyways, Trump's team has come out with something, right? And at least this is what we're thinking. They say they're going to replace the lost tax money in two main ways. Okay, we've heard of these. If you've been following this at all, you've heard of some of it in some way, shape, or form. The big one that I've seen a lot of is tariffs on imports. Okay, this means that the U.S. government would charge high taxes on goods coming in to the U.S. from other countries instead of taxing your income. And from what I've been reading, what I've been hearing is a lot of it's going to be reciprocal taxes, which means whatever countries are tariffing us, we're going to match. Okay, and then the second main way is closing tax loopholes. Right? They claim that they'll crack down on offshore tax fraud and loopholes that let big corporations avoid paying taxes. Um, these two main ways, I don't think anybody's really certain of. We all have our opinions, but I can tell you that so far tariffs on imports seem to have they've been as of late more so negotiating tactics that are working, sort of. Um, I've been buying like crazy in the stock market just because everything seems cheap. And if it keeps bottom, if a new bottom starts happening, then I'll reinvest some more. But I'm betting on America long term. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not sure about the tariffs. And then closing tax loopholes, I'm not sure of either, because I just feel like when you got billions of dollars, you're gonna figure it out. There's no way you can close all the loopholes. There's always gonna be a hole that they're gonna find, because they're gonna pay big money to figure it out. And I believe Trump has taken advantage of some of these tax loopholes. I don't know about fraud. Fraud's a little bit different, but tax loopholes aren't necessarily illegal, right? They're just very creative. And I know this because I own an accounting firm. So, speaking of which, go check out pieaccounting.com if you need a great accounting firm that isn't just going to do your taxes and your bookkeeping. They're going to help you build a better, stable, efficient business and get your finances on track in whatever your goals are, your financial dreams and desires, right? Pieaccounting.com. All right. So here's where some of the problems come in. So the U.S. government gets most of its money from income taxes. That's about half of all federal revenue. Okay, and there's some debate about that. I've heard things, like it's actually U.S. Treasury bonds. It's actually, uh, federal income taxes aren't that much of a income driver for the government. But then, doing some research, it actually is the majority of the country's revenues, but they do get a big chunk of it from creating money, right? The Federal Reserve printing money, or the BEP printing money, and then the U.S. The Federal Reserve deciding if it's going to put money in, take money out, and U.S. Treasury bonds are a thing, right? That's a great way to give the government more money to spend. And so they are saying that over half of all federal revenue is from income taxes. And so even if we maxed out tariffs on imports, it wouldn't even come close to replacing all the lost income tax revenue. And let's be real, when you tax imports, companies don't just eat the cost. That's true. I own a company that imports product, and we will pass it on to the consumer. Not 100% of it, but everyone's going to be doing it. You got to remain competitive, and you got to stay in business. So people will pass it on to the consumer 100%. You're going to see it across the board in every industry. I don't think that's necessarily greed, but that's it's a tough call that companies have to make. So, although we'll see less taxes on our paychecks, you're going to feel it in affordability. You're going to feel it in stores, right? And I'll be honest with you, I would rather see it in stores, as crazy as that may sound, because now it's a consumer tax. And if I don't spend a lot of money on things, just to give you an idea, a lot of people don't realize they're paying a lot in taxes. Um, you might actually be better off on the bottom line paying no taxes and seeing your everyday goods raise a little bit. But I don't know that either, right? I'm talking out the side of my mouth right now. So yeah, no income tax sounds great, but again, we probably end up paying for it in other ways, right? Um, I don't think it would balance out. I do think it's a win-win. It's still a win, but it's not like you're just going to wipe out taxes and everything's going to stay the same. Okay, and so I chat GPT'd it real quick, and it says here um, that about 24% of all federal income taxes are paid by citizens who make 150,000 or less. So 24% or less is the number that I guess I'm gonna have to go with because that's the best one that I can find. Yeah, I think maybe that does equate to trillions that it needs that the government would have to figure out how to replace. With the news and stuff, man, like look at this. It's hard to know what's going on. Everybody has their agenda. Um, I can't see a tax plan that aims to eliminate 150K a year in taxes, um, in taxable income, right? I can't see that being aimed for the wealthy, but it does benefit the wealthy because consumers have more money to spend now. It's just going to go right back to the top 5% earners, right? Top 1% earners. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a win-win for everybody, right? So let's say this plan actually happens. So what does it mean for the average person? If you make 150K or less, you keep all of your paycheck. No more federal income tax taken out. That's a lot. But expect prices to rise because companies are going to pass tariffs on to consumers. I think the majority will. Some won't. You got Arizona Tea, that company that they don't do nothing. They don't change nothing. You got Costco hot dogs. They ain't never changing. Although I think that's recently changed. Um, and if you make over 150,000, you might end up paying more in taxes because someone has to make up the difference. And that would be me. But if I paid a little bit more, although I'm already paying a lot, I feel like I'm paying a crap ton. I pay more in taxes than I use than I consume, than I use on a personal level. So what I spend annually, I probably spend double in taxes. So it's not like realized profits that I'm paying taxes on. My businesses have inventory that I got to replenish and all that. All that income that I'm making, I still got to pay taxes on, but they're sitting in a warehouse. The profits, it's sitting in a warehouse in more inventory to resell, but I still got to pay taxes on that stuff, right? So it makes it difficult even for business owners who organically wouldn't be balling out because their businesses make good money. So while this plan sounds like a tax cut for the middle class, somebody still has to foot the bill. And if we don't bring in enough money from tariffs, guess what? The government's gonna either cut major programs like Social Security or Medicare or go deeper into debt. That's what people are saying. That's what they're thinking. I mean, there are other things like the gold visa. I do love the idea of the sovereign fund, where they're talking about doing the same thing that Dubai, that Singapore does, and that the government just buys businesses. For example, TikTok could be one of those, and the profits are passed on to taxpayers. I think that could help a lot. I don't know why our government doesn't do that more. I mean, we're not a communist country or anything like that, but if the government would invest taxpayers' money to alleviate taxpayers' burden, um, that's a win, in my opinion. So is all this going to happen? Right now, it's more of a campaign idea than a real law. Trump's team is testing the waters to see how people react. But even if he wins another term, Congress has to approve any tax change, and that's not easy. I mean, there's Republicans that are already pushing back, saying this could explode the federal deficit. Economists warn that without replacing lost revenue, this plan could have massive inflation, higher national debt, or cuts to the government programs. And even with tariffs, experts say it's impossible to cover the full cost of removing income taxes for 93% of America. I don't know that that's true. Like everybody has their opinions, and I'm reading them. And I have my opinion, but I don't think Trump has another term that he can do, unless I'm wrong here. And maybe some of the Republican pushback that they're claiming is more so they just want to unpack it some more. But I do think they're putting it out there to get a reaction, to see what Americans think. And I love the idea. I love that light at the end of the tunnel, in my opinion. Um, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And if it did, it'd probably be one of the biggest tax shifts in U.S. history. We don't know what kind of consequences this can bring. I own an accounting firm, and I don't know, right? And not that I'm an accountant. We have amazing enrolled agents that I'm probably going to pick their brain, see what they're thinking. And I don't think that tariffs, the golden visa, and closing loopholes are the only way that they're going to make up for it. There's definitely some creative ways, like the sovereign fund, different ways that I think that the U.S. government can make up for these tariffs. I mean, it is a huge economy here. It affects the entire world, right? So let me know in the comments. Do you guys think this is a genius move for the middle class and the poor? Do you think this is just something to line the wealthy's pockets some more? Or do you think it's going to be a win-win situation? Maybe not a win for everyone outside the world that's been tariffing us and we haven't been matching or whatever it may be. It's going to be a shift for the entire world, I think. But I'd love to know in the comments what you guys think about this whole topic. It's interesting. Every day, man. Every day, the world, it's a lot.